Hey, what's going on? Welcome back. So I just got finished reading this book, and if you're someone that struggles socially, there are so many gold nuggets in here that I just had to make a video about it. You see, we grew up telling ourselves that we're just not good with people, we don't have that social gene, we're too awkward, too weird, too introverted. And I know because these are literally the exact same thoughts that I used to have growing up. But after reading this book, something became very, very clear to me. You see, the problem isn't that you don't have social skills. The problem isn't that you don't have charisma. The problem is that you can't access that social, charismatic version of yourself right now. And the reason why is way more specific and way more fixable than you might think. So the book is called How to Be Yourself by Dr. Hendriksen, who is a clinical psychologist and has been basically helping people her entire career who struggle socially and with social anxiety. Now, I've struggled with social anxiety ever since I was 14 years old. And it got to a point where I'm basically like, I gotta get this part of my life handled. And so today I wanna share 6 insights and tools from the book that I think are genuinely going to help you. Make sure to stick around for the 5th one because that one has had the biggest impact on my life. So when I first read about this one, it immediately clicked. You see, you're not actually afraid of people. You're afraid of being exposed by people. Dr. Hendriksen calls this the reveal. Deep down, you believe that there's something inherently wrong with you, that you have some sort of flaw. You've been trying to hide this flaw basically your whole life. And if you let your guard down, if you speak up or open up or get too close to people, they're eventually gonna find out and they're gonna reject you. For some people, the fear is more physical, like what if I blush or what if my voice shakes? For other people like me, it's more like what if people think I'm boring or weird or not smart enough? So it's not that you don't like people. You probably really want connection and you're actually craving it. It's more that the anxiety is coming from what you're afraid will happen if people find out the real you. And that distinction matters because the work now goes from forcing yourself to become more outgoing to learning to deal with what you believe is true about yourself. Which brings us to the voice that basically runs the entire show.
Oh, that was so awkward. Why did you say that? You know they don't like you, right?
Dr. Hendriksen calls this the inner critic. And I think a lot of us, myself included, probably thought that this was actually useful. Like, if I criticize myself enough, I'll perform better next time. But the research actually shows the opposite. People with social anxiety don't just have a louder inner critic. They also have a harder time remembering anything positive about themselves. So you end up in this loop where all the bad evidence just becomes massive and all the good evidence doesn't even register. Dr. Hendriksen gives 2 tools for this. The first one is called replace, where instead of submitting to the inner critic as the truth, you actually start to challenge it with 4 questions in this order. What is the worst that can happen? How bad would that really be? What are the odds? And how could I cope? And sometimes it's hard to even know what our inner critic is telling us. So try this fill in the blank. When social situation where I feel anxious, it will become obvious that I am whatever my inner critic is saying is wrong with me. So for me, it would be when I go up to give a 2-minute impromptu speech, it will become obvious that people will think I'm not smart. And so then I would ask, well, how bad would that really be? Honestly, not that bad. People's opinions of me doesn't determine my worth. What are the odds? The odds are very low. You know, I'd have to say something really stupid. And even then, people are forgetful and they're mostly thinking about themselves. And so they're not gonna really be remembering this down the line anyway. And lastly, how could I cope if some people thought I wasn't actually smart and disliked me for it? Well, I would focus on the people that liked me and didn't really care. So you see how that works? It basically takes this fear that is vague and heavy and it grounds it into reality. The second tool is called embrace, basically self-compassion, treating yourself with the same basic decency you'd give a friend. Not toxic positivity, but actual genuine kindness towards yourself. So now you know how to deal with the inner critic. That was the crucial first step. But if you really want to change your social life, it's not enough. You can't just think your way to it. You have to take action. You have to face your fears repeatedly. And remember that action comes before confidence, not after. Now here is why this is so important. Let's say there's someone that you want to go talk to. You go start approaching them, your anxiety spikes through the roof, but last minute you bail and immediately your anxiety is going to drop and you're going to feel that relief. But guess what? Next time, that situation is going to be just as scary, because your brain never got to realize that the situation wasn't going to kill you. It never got to realize that it wasn't that bad. But this time, let's say you actually go and approach the person and you stay in conversation. Your anxiety is going to shoot through the roof just like last time, but this time you just stick it out and be brave for a few seconds, and slowly, naturally, your anxiety is going to drop by itself. And this time, you're going to actually learn that this situation wasn't going to kill me. Even though it's uncomfortable in the beginning, I actually survived it and nothing bad happened. And this is key, because each time you do this, it's going to become easier and easier. The intensity and the duration of the anxiety is going to get smaller and smaller. And soon enough, what's going to happen is that mountain of anxiety that you had initially is going to turn into a molehill. And that's not motivation, that's just how our brains work. All right, so this is the one that I teased in the beginning of the video. You see, you don't have a social skills problem. I know it sounds crazy because every social situation that you go into, it feels like proof that you actually do, but here's what's actually happening. When you're anxious in a social situation, your brain has hijacked all your mental resources. All your mental energy is going into self-monitoring, like how am I coming across to this person? How do I sound? Am I coming across as weird? That there's no more energy left to actually be present in the moment. Dr. Hendriksen calls this the closed circuit. All your energy is trapped inside this internal loop that none of it actually reaches the conversation. So what happens is you end up going flat. You miss things, your mind goes blank, and then people react to you weird and you go, see, I don't have social skills. But it's not a skills problem, it's an attention problem. The fix is what she calls turning your attention inside out. So instead of monitoring yourself, get genuinely curious about the other person. Listen to understand them, not to respond to them. Listen to what they're actually saying. And when you do this, the anxiety is not going to just disappear, but it's going to kind of just fade into the background, because you can't maintain self-focus and genuine outward focus at the same time. You just can't. And one of them is going to win. And do this with enough practice, and it's just going to become second nature. Okay, so this is the one in the beginning of the video that I mentioned that had the biggest impact in my life. When a social situation feels overwhelming, when you walk into a room and you just have no idea what to do, give yourself a role, a purpose, an assignment. Dr. Hendriksen says that for someone with social anxiety, having an unstructured social situation is like being handed a blank canvas with no direction. It's just absolutely terrifying. But if you give yourself a role, a host, an organizer, like someone who introduces people to each other, someone who makes new people feel comfortable, suddenly you now have a reason to actually be there. It goes from forcing myself to socialize with people to I have a job to do here. She compares it to scaffolding. You see, when you're constructing a building, you put scaffolding around it first, temporary structure that lets you do the work safely. But once the building is solid and fully built, scaffolding comes down, building remains. Scaffolding is the role you give yourself in a social situation. It's a tool, not a permanent thing. Now, one more thing that is very crucial. She talks about how people who are prone to social anxiety usually have a harder time stepping up for themselves, but it's much easier for them to step up if it's for someone that they love or if it's for a cause that they believe in. So make the intention bigger than you. Go make that new person feel welcome. Lead so others feel included. When you have the intention go outwards, it makes it so much easier to show up. Let me tell you a real story. 4th year university, one of the lowest social points in my entire life. I had 0 close friends. I walked to class alone. I studied alone, ate lunch alone. Social anxiety was bad. A leadership position opened up on my engineering design team, the aero design team, where we build and design RC aircraft for competition. And I'm like, is exactly what I need, because this is going to give me a purpose, a structured role to actually start interacting with people, overcome my social anxiety and make friends and get out of this lonely situation that I'm in. And this was the president position. It involved leading every single chair meeting and every single build session. It involved giving tons of fundraising presentations, onboarding new members, just constant interacting and leading. It was perfect. It was terrifying, but it was perfect. And so I did it. I became president, and at first it was so scary and so terrifying. But I just kept reminding myself, I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing this for the team. I'm doing this to make other people feel more welcome, to make the team more enjoyable for everyone. And it was that it was that shift from inward focus to outward focus that made the biggest difference, because like every interaction went from it being performance-based to now it being service-based, and that made all the difference. Then something unexpected started to happen. I realized that I actually had the social skills all along. The conversations, they started flowing more naturally. The presentations got easier. That 1 year, I made more friends than the previous 3 combined. It was amazing. And what's even crazier is outside the team, in everyday life, it actually carried over. So my anxiety actually started to go down outside the team, and my confidence grew. The scaffolding wasn't needed anymore, and like I could take it off now. So it worked. Last one, and this one completely changed the way I see how friendships are formed. Friendships are not discovered, they are cultivated. Dr. Hendriksen says, social anxiety tells us that we should find friends instantly. The semantics are subtle but telling. Social anxiety tells us to find a friend, to win someone over right away. But real friends must be made. Friendship is a process, not a ready-made discovery. But that's actually good news. Rather than searching for a diamond in the rough, it turns out that the rough contains scores of potential friends. The raw stuff, the stardust that transforms into friends, is everywhere. Almost everyone is a candidate. Oddly, to make a friend, you don't need the right person. Instead, the person becomes right over time. So knowing this, how do you actually make friends? Well, first you need to ask yourself, is there someone in my life right now that I'm already friendly with? If so, they're in. That's the only bar. They're a candidate now. But 3 things move candidates towards actual friendship. The first is proximity and repetition. Seeing the same person repeatedly in a familiar context is gonna lead to a higher likelihood of bonding with that person. Just showing up consistently to the same class, to the same team, is one of the most powerful things that you can do. It sounds almost too simple, but proximity creates repetition, and repetition creates closeness. At my work, there's a desk right next to mine that's reserved specifically for the new interns who always come every 8 months. And out of every team member that I have, these interns are the ones that I develop the closest friendships with, just due to the sheer proximity. The second one is called disclosure. And this is not oversharing, but it's just being a bit more open and honest than you normally would be. So instead of saying, yeah, the weekend was good, you could say, the weekend was kind of rough. I've just kind of been in my head a lot lately. Or instead of, yeah, I like that show, you could say, yeah, the show was good, but that episode, I just got weirdly emotional and I don't even know why. What happens when you do this? It signals trust. It signals that you trust the other person and you're open and honest. And what happens is they reciprocate that trust back to you, and they start to be more open and honest as well. And that's how friendships actually get deeper. But when you don't open up, when you stay on the surface, then the friendship is going to stay on the surface. And you can know someone for years, but it could feel like they don't actually really know you. And that's one of the worst and loneliest feelings that there's out there, and I know because I felt that. Finally, the most important trait to real connection is not charisma or confidence. It is kindness, being warm, being the person who actually listens, who's trustworthy. And if you're someone who's struggled socially, if you are prone to social anxiety, then you probably have this more than you think. You're more thoughtful, you're more careful with how you treat people, you're more attuned to people. And it's just been this anxiety that's been covering all of this up. So those were the 6 insights and tools from the book that will help transform your social life, as they definitely are for me. Now, there's actually 4 more in the book that I wasn't able to fit in the video, unfortunately. So if you're really serious about getting this handled, then I left a link in the description below. I highly recommend it. Anyways, like and subscribe if you want to come along on this journey with me, and I'll see you on the next one.